think about this for a second. If you were going to invest your time, your energy, like right now, today, to really build your absolute best future self, where would you put it? I mean, most of us, our minds jump straight to, getting wealthy, maybe becoming famous, or hitting some huge career milestone. But what if I told you the surprising, scientifically proven truth about living a long, healthy, and genuinely happy life lies somewhere completely different, somewhere totally unexpected?
Oh, it absolutely does. And that's what we're doing today, a real deep dive into something often overlooked, the massive impact of positive social relationships. We're going to unpack findings from one of the longest studies ever done on human life, the Harvard study of adult development. And what's really exciting now, there's new research starting to show us the biological how these connections literally affect us down to our cells.
Right. So our mission today is to explore how these human connections, they aren't just nice to haves, are they? They're fundamental, absolutely key to our physical health, our mental well-being. This isn't just about, feeling good. It's what the science says about how you actually live longer and thrive. Okay, so let's unpack this. The heart of this, really, is the Harvard study of adult development. When you say a study is almost 80 years old, that's just incredible in research terms. What makes something like that so special, so reliable?
It's the endurance, isn't it? Just the sheer commitment to following the same individuals through decades of their lives. It kicked off way back in 1938. Think about that, right in the Depression. And it started with two really different groups. You had 268 Harvard sophomores, a lot of whom went on to fight in World War II. And then, simultaneously, 456 boys from inner city Boston. These weren't just any boys. They were chosen specifically from some of the most troubled, disadvantaged families at the time. We're talking really tough circumstances, tenement housing, sometimes without basic things like hot and cold running water. And it didn't start with them. Over the decades, it grew hugely. They brought in the men's wives, and now they're studying over 1,300 of their children, the offspring, who are now in the 50s and 60s themselves.
That breadth is just wow. And it's astonishing commitment. So what kind of information, what data did they actually collect over all those years from all those people?
Oh, the depth is just incredible. They gathered, basically everything you could think of. Medical records directly from their doctors, obviously. Hundreds and hundreds of in-person interviews, tons of questionnaires filled out over the years. They drew blood for analysis. They did brain scans, MRIs later on. And they even, get this, videotaped participants talking with their wives about their deepest worries and concerns. So you get this unbelievably rich, almost intimate picture of real lives unfolding over nearly 80 years.
And after all that time, all that data, the study's clearest, most consistent message, as the current director Robert Waldinger puts it, it's so simple but kind of flies in the face of what society tells us. He says, good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. Full stop. And that really clashes, doesn't it? Especially when you ask younger people today, millennials, for instance, surveys show they often point to money or fame or big achievements as the keys to happiness. But this massive study, looking at everyone from the Harvard grads to the inner city guys, it says, nope. That's not it. It's the relationships. It's really quite eye-opening.
Okay, so nearly 80 years of following people. What are the big takeaways? The actionable lessons we can pull from this Harvard study right now? Because this is where it gets really interesting.
Well, the first big lesson, it really turns common thinking on its head. Loneliness. It's not just a sad feeling. The study shows it's toxic. It's actually as powerful a risk factor for early death as smoking or alcoholism. Just let it sink in for a moment.
As bad as smoking.
Well.
Yeah. It's a profound finding. The data is crystal clear. Strong social connections, whether that's family, friends, community, they consistently lead to happier lives, physically healthier lives, and longer lives. Conversely, feeling lonely, feeling more isolated than you want to be, it's literally damaging. These people are less happy, sure, but their health starts to decline earlier, often in midlife. Their brain function declines sooner, and ultimately, they live shorter lives. And this isn't some rare thing either. Current estimates suggest over 1 in 5 Americans reports feeling lonely. It's a major public health issue, really.
That's a really stark warning. But hang on, it's not just about having any connections, right? Just being surrounded by people isn't the answer. Because I think many people might think, oh, the more friends, the better. The second big lesson seems to be about quality over quantity. It's not just the number of friends or even just being married, but the quality, the actual warmth and support in those close relationships. Is that right?
You've nailed it. It's absolutely about the quality. Quantity doesn't seem to matter nearly as much. For example, living in the middle of conflict, that's really bad for our health. High conflict marriages, especially ones lacking affection, the study found they can be very detrimental, potentially even worse for your physical health than getting divorced.
Worse than divorce.
Potentially, yes. On the flip side, living surrounded by good, warm, supportive relationships, that acts as a powerful protective factor. And here's a really striking detail. They looked back at the participants when they were 50. And you know what? How satisfied they were in their relationships at age 50 was a better predictor of their physical health at age 80 than their cholesterol levels were at age 50.
Get out. Better than cholesterol.
Better than their cholesterol levels. And think about this. Those who were in happily partnered relationships in their 80s, they reported that even on days when they had more physical pain, their mood stayed pretty steady. They didn't let the pain drag down their spirits as much. But those in unhappy relationships, on days with more physical pain, they reported feeling magnified pain, both physical and emotional. It's a good relationships buffer us against life's knocks.
That's incredible to think relationships could predict physical health better than a key biological marker like cholesterol. And it doesn't stop at physical health, does it? The third big lesson you mentioned was also really surprising, that good relationships actually protect our brains, our cognitive health, too. How on earth does that work?
Yeah, this connection to the brain is fascinating. It really makes you think about how deep these effects go. The study found that being in what they call a securely attached relationship in your 80s offers significant protection for your memory. So people who felt, deep down, that they could truly rely on their partner in times of need, their memory stayed sharper for longer. And what's really interesting is, this was true even if the couple reported bickering a lot, like day-to-day arguments.
The arguing is okay.
As long as that fundamental feeling of trust and reliability was there, yes. The arguments themselves didn't seem to erode their memory function. It was the underlying security, that feeling of, I know you've got my back, that seemed to provide the protection for the brain.
That's amazing. So connections impact our bodies, our minds. But you hit it earlier, it goes even deeper. To the cellular level, how do relationships physically change us? So, what does this mean biologically?
Right, this is where it gets really cutting edge. These social connections, they aren't just, making us feel good mentally. They are literally changing your biology, right down at the cellular level. They influence how you age, how healthy you remain. It brings in this idea of the ambiome. Think of it like your life's ecosystem. It includes everything, what you eat, how much you move, yes, but crucially also the people you surround yourself with, your social environment. And there's growing evidence that this ambiome, this life environment, might actually influence your health more profoundly than your genetic code, your genome. Positive social bonds, it seems, actually trigger a slowing down of some of the negative consequences of aging. They seem to potentiate or extend your health span, the number of healthy years you live.
So just to make sure I'm getting this, it's not just feeling happier. It's like our bodies physically respond differently, become more resilient when we have good relationships.
Exactly that. Good relationships seem to improve how well our vital physiological systems function. We're talking about the nervous system, the endocrine system, think hormones, and especially the immune system. Now, a big part of aging is something called immunosenescence. It's basically your immune system getting older, less effective, kind of worn out. And this decline makes us more vulnerable to infections, to autoimmune diseases, even to some cancers. A lot of this is linked to an imbalance in tiny signaling molecules called cytokines, leading to a chronic low-level state of inflammation throughout the body, sometimes called inflammaging.
Okay, that makes sense. And you mentioned rodent studies earlier.
Yeah.
That these effects aren't just seen in humans, which is important because it helps isolate the mechanism, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The animal studies provide really compelling parallel evidence. For instance, researchers took chronologically old mice that were old just by age, and let them live together with younger adult mice.
Right.
What happened? The old mice showed slowed immunosenescence. Their immune systems acted younger, they had improved immune function, and they actually lived longer compared to similar old mice kept in isolation.
Wow, just by cohabiting.
Just by cohabiting. And they saw similar benefits in mouse models of premature aging, too. Now, if you consider that the way the immune system ages shows a lot of similar patterns in rodents and humans, these findings strongly suggest that these beneficial effects of social interaction on the immune system and slowing aging, they're very likely transferable to us, to human beings. So the question is, how does this work biologically? What's the mechanism? Well, one leading hypothesis is that positive social relationships help generate sort of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects within the body. Think of it like this. Good supportive relationships help calm things down internally. They reduce those pro-inflammatory signals, those cytokines we mentioned. It's like putting out tiny fires inside your body. Whereas isolation or stress from bad relationships seems to fuel those fires, creating more pro-inflammatory cytokines. And this chronic inflammation, this internal rusting, is at the root of many diseases and the aging process itself. So Much like eating an antioxidant-rich diet or getting regular exercise, positive social connections can actually help restore that cytokine balance, reducing the pro-inflammatory state, and that directly promotes healthier aging.
This is all just incredibly compelling. It shifts the focus so much. So, okay, bringing it back to us, to the listener. Regardless of our age, whether you're in your 20s listening to this or your 80s, how can we actually use these insights? How do we actively cultivate this good life and lean into these vital relationships?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the first thing to really internalize is that aging isn't something that starts when you turn 65. It's a continuous process. It begins way back in early adulthood, even in our 20s. So self-care, which absolutely includes tending to our relationships, isn't something you start thinking about later. It's a lifelong commitment, a lifelong practice. George Vallon, who directed the Harvard study before Waldinger, he actually pinpointed 6 factors from the study data that strongly predicted healthy aging among the Harvard men. These were regular physical activity, avoiding alcohol abuse and smoking, having mature ways to cope with life's inevitable stresses, maintaining a healthy weight, and having a stable marriage. Interestingly, for the inner city men who started with more disadvantages, education was also a really important protective factor alongside those.
And it's just so striking, again, that genetics seemed less important for longevity than how satisfied people were with their relationships in midlife. That's a massive piece of hope for people, isn't it? And it also blows up that old idea that your personality is just, set like plaster by age 30. The study clearly shows people can change their paths, they can improve their trajectories, even if they had a really rough start in life. So, thinking practically, what are some concrete, maybe even simple ways someone can lean into relationships? Especially if maybe they feel they don't have many close ties or their current ones feel a bit stale. Oh, the possibilities are endless and often much simpler than we might think. It could literally be swapping some screen time for people time. Instead of scrolling for an hour, maybe use that time to actually call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or just chat with a neighbor over the fence. Or maybe it's about breathing life into a relationship that feels a bit routine. Do something new together. Take up walking together. Commit to a regular date night where you actually talk, not just sit in front of the TV.
And here's a potentially powerful one. Reaching out to a family member you're estranged from, someone you maybe haven't talked to in years because of some old argument. The study hinted that holding on to those grudges, those common family feuds, takes a really heavy toll, long-term toll on the person holding the grudge. Imagine letting that go. The relief. So when you boil it all down, the core message from almost 80 years of incredibly detailed human observation is profound, but it's also beautifully simple, isn't it? Good relationships, they're the key, the fundamental key to a happier life, a healthier life, and very likely a longer life.
Absolutely. And this isn't just individual advice. It has huge societal relevance. We have aging populations across the globe now, and that brings enormous economic and social challenges. Fostering positive social relationships, encouraging community connection. It's actually a really powerful and relatively low-cost strategy for promoting healthy longevity across the board. It benefits individuals, yes, but it benefits society as a whole.
Mark Twain had that great quote, didn't he? Something like, "There isn't time so brief as life for bickerings, apologies, heartburnings, callings to account. There's only time for loving but an instant, so to speak, for that." Really makes you think. So the final thought for you, the listener, what stands out to you from all this? How might you lean into your relationships, maybe starting today? And just imagine how might those small shifts ripple outwards through your life, maybe even down to yourselves for decades to come.